scariest thing you've ever seen in your life? Okay, so not something I saw, but something I was told someone else saw. Here's the story. My ex-GF passed away years ago. Before she passed, me and brother lived together, and my brother had a big pit bull named Max. Max was an awesome dog, and she was a big animal lover, and she knew Max very well. I eventually moved out. He got a GF who had a kid and needed the space. Okay, that's established. Of note, my ex-GF had long blonde hair, was in her 30s, and she was buried in a pink sweater. A few months after she passed, my brother took them all on a vacation and asked me if I could watch the dog, feed him, etc. I said yes, of course. They kept him crated, and the crate was in his GF's daughter's room, kind of a big basement room. I hung out with the dog and eventually had to leave, so I put him back in his crate. I felt bad, but I had to. Before I left, I looked up the sky and said, "Meg, if you're still around, please keep Max company. He's going to be lonely." So I go home, my brother comes back, whatever. A few months later, I'm talking to his GF in her 30s, and we're talking about ghost stuff. She tells me that her house is haunted. I'm like, no way, I'm there all the time. I've never seen anything. She explains to me that it seemed to happen out of nowhere. She hadn't seen anything, but her daughter, around 5 or 6 years old, told her that sometimes when Max is barking or freaking out for whatever reason, her daughter tells her she sees a lady about mommy's age with long blonde hair wearing a pink sweater who calms down the dog. I'm pretty sure I invited a ghost in their house, but I'm damn happy that I did. I wish I could have seen her. My friend and I were driving from a gig we played in Kona on the big island of Hawaii. We were driving on Saddle Road, one of 2 roads from Kona to the other side of the island to Hilo Town. Saddle Road is known for being a spiritual place and lots of weird things there. This stretch of land is about 40 kilo with no lights or population, just lava rock. We drove over the road about 1 a.m. We were talking stories and having a good time. Then we saw on the side of the road a huge white dog wearing a gold chain staring at us. We passed and asked if we saw the same thing. We were debating about stopping on the side of the road to pick it up. The local legend is that if you see an old lady on the road, you need to pick her up, or something bad will happen. We didn't stop and didn't speak until we got home. I asked another local guy what could that have been. He said it was the goddess Pile's pet. Did some research. Looks like this dog has been seen sporadically since the 1950s. My grandfather had just died a few days earlier, and my mom was crying one night in our kitchen. I started hugging her. We had a lot of my grandfather's belongings, but there was this broken radio that didn't even have working batteries in it on the table, along with other things like photos and clothes he previously owned. This is the only unexplainable thing I've ever experienced. But while my mom was bawling crying, the radio made a very loud static noise for about a second. We both stared in silence at it. It was eerie. She stopped crying because even she heard it. We both just went to bed after that and haven't spoke of it since. I'd imagine if it was something paranormal, it was my grandfather letting us know he's here, but who knows? The day before my grandfather died, he told my brother and I that he'll be waiting at the bar to buy us a beer in the future. Skip ahead to about a month after his passing, I had a very short, felt like 10 seconds, very vivid dream of me walking into a bar I didn't recognize, and my grandpa being at the bar. He spun the chair around and had a beer in each hand. He just said, "You guys ready for that beer?" I looked right, and my brother was standing next to me. I snapped awake so fast I scared the crap out of my wife and dog. I'm just panting, breathing, and freaked out. I went to check my phone to see what time it was, and as I picked it up, I got a text from my brother saying, "Hey, I just had a fucked up dream." Yeah, same dream. I was about to cross the street. A lady put her arm across my chest and said, "Wait." As I look at her trying to figure out what is going on, a car crash happens, and one of the cars goes tumbling down the street 2 feet in front of me. If she hadn't stopped me, I would absolutely be dead. I turned to look at her again, and she is no longer there. I could see for blocks in each direction. Nowhere she could have gone that fast where I wouldn't be able to see her. Only thing I can come up with is I imagined it happening in my memory due to how tragic the crash was. Never experienced anything even slightly supernatural before or after. I was maybe 10 years old, and my grandma had just died. I didn't really know her because she had spent most of my young life in a nursing home and often didn't remember who I was when I went to visit. But when I visited, she would always rub my back. It was sort of like an instinctual comfort thing. She did it to all her kids and grandkids. For about a year after she died, I would be sitting in my room at night, alone, and start to feel someone rubbing my back like she used to. It freaked me out until one night when I acknowledged it and said, "Thank you, Grandma." It stopped after that, and I never felt it again. I might have something for this. When I was young, probably around 10 or so, maybe younger, I was at a family wedding. It was late in the evening, so a full moon was out and it was getting darker. Me and my cousin, who's a year younger, were swinging on this big metal gate thing outside the venue. It was on the entrance to a very, very big field. We noticed a guy very far into the field who was just glowing and radiating white. I mean, his skin, clothes, everything. I remember us standing there like, WTF. Then we tried to get his attention and shout at him. He stopped, looked in our direction, but he stopped right under the full moon and pointed up towards the moon while staring at us. We were just in shock and confusion, pretty much. After about 10 seconds of pointing, he carried on walking across the field and just disappeared behind a swing set. Even till this day, I have no idea what that was. I'm hoping it was some costume or something, but sure didn't look like it. I had a dog growing up that was the smartest dog I've ever met. She was like a human trapped in a dog's body. My brother and I found her wandering around our neighborhood after school, and we brought her home. She was beloved. My brother died young. After he died, she would walk slowly in a circle around a plant we had in the living room, letting the leaves that hung down gently rub her back. Every once in a while, she would stop and look up at the plant for a moment, like she saw some kind of apparition floating above the plant. She would get a sad look in her eyes and let out a whimper. I'm convinced she was seeing my brother's ghost watching over us. I really loved that dog. It's not scary, but unexplainable. When I was 10, I got into a motorcycle accident. I wasn't driving it. I was walking from school when a motorcycle hit me going full speed. I did see the motorcycle come, but I froze up and couldn't move. When it had hit me, I flew pretty far and remember someone catching me when I fell down. When I got up and looked around, I didn't see anyone, and witnesses told the cops I flew at least 6 feet and fell headfirst on the ground. My head was fine, just had a broken collarbone. Thankfully, my parents believed me when I told them.